Do you ever wonder how to be the absolute very best on your floor? I'm going to show you how in this episode. I get asked pretty much the same question often of, what's the secret that this person does, or what's the secret that that person does. And I've noticed that it's actually the same question from everyone and anyone who's on a sales floor. And I think it's natural to want to know what people within your surroundings are doing right now to gain traction and to gain the momentum that they need. And it's really going to be one single factor that's going to determine whether or not that person asking the question of what works versus what doesn't, whether or not they execute and also keep going at it, meaning that they're repetitive, that they understand and accept that they can see how it's done, but it still will require practice. And I think that, my punchline here is that if you want to know how to excel in your sales floor, you want to identify who on your sales floor is already excelling, who's already doing it. And I think that if you start there, you can then start to create a plan or a strategy of how to infiltrate that person, or really kind of interview that person in a very nice way, very subtle way, a way that's not going to be taking up their time. Because in essence, what you're kind of doing is looking for mentorship. You're looking for a mentor. And I would say that the biggest issue is that no one wants to be a mentor, or no one wants to stop, take time, and teach everyone's lessons, because the return is minimal. There's no return. Or at least that is the experience that I see, is maybe the top producers, they're intimidating. Of course they are. They're the pro on their floor. You don't want to approach them, because either your ego or their ego may be kind of creating this barrier, this block. And what I can tell you from my experience is that ego is not worth growth. I would never exchange my ego for a chance to learn how to do my job better, and therefore my income would increase, or my skill sets would get better. And I want to share this with you because my experience, I used to come to work like that, with this huge ego. Hey, I'll figure everything out myself, kind of like a knucklehead, a little bit resistant. And this was very early in my career, and until I accepted that I'm only as good as I allow myself to be, I started to become open-minded. And even though I had a specific technique that may not have worked within a industry or niche or product or service, I was able to use the power of adaptation and adapt to that floor, and that sales floor. And so what you're going to find here on Sales Remastered is simple guidance and techniques of what to do, not only to win sales, but also just win in your career, win on your sales floor, and move up, rank up. And I think that if you're consistent with not only following the videos here on Sales Remastered, but taking out the pieces of gold that you find that could be useful and actually doing it. Because it all sounds good on video, right? It all sounds good when you hear it for the first time, but it's really going to be up to you on implementing that advice. And so if there's one thing that you could take away from this video, it's that in order to be one of the best on your sales floor, you have to mimic and almost study the people who are already the best on your sales floor. And so you might be asking, well, Daniel, how do I do this? How do I do that? Number one is, if you don't want to go directly to that top producer, you can go through the person that they report to. So for example, their sales manager. But it's really in the strategy of how you approach that person, right? So like a typical way could be, hey, what do you think that this person does to earn so much business? And then just question mark and send it that way. And you have to understand that emails can be taken in a different way. Same thing with direct messages, or same thing with text messages. And it goes in all ways, not just for asking mentorship, but just with your day-to-day communication with the operation roles that support you. And so what I have found is that if you start the email or the interaction or the engagement or correspondence with a hi, their first name, or hello, their first name, and then wrap it up with a compliment. Like in this case, if I was asking for mentorship from a manager on a team who on that team has a top producer that I really want to learn from, and let's just say their name was Daniel, I'd say, hey Daniel, great job on leading your team. I learned so much and am inspired from, your leadership. Your team is very lucky. Just curious, I really notice Jim always at the top of the list. If I can ask you, what do you think are maybe 2 or 3 things that Jim does in order to reach that success? And so you see, that's how the correspondence starts, and why that's more effective than, hey Daniel, what is Jim doing? Or hey Daniel, what's Jim's secret? Right? There's you have to kind of fluff the person. This is sales, right? And I think that could be a lesson if you're not already doing that, taking that extra sentence or taking that extra minute to create a sentence that's going to open up the dialogue and kind of break down some resistance and extract information that you need. You have to kind of, you have to just be a little bit creative on your approach. And so why I think that's helpful is because you've already acknowledged and kind of fluff the leader or the one in command of that particular team. And so naturally they're going to be a little bit more responsive from a gratitude standpoint versus like a demand, like they're responding to something that they have to answer. And you're going to get more compliance if you first fluff rather than demand. And I think that applies not only to communication with anyone. It can be your manager, your teammate, your brother, sister, spouse, your prospect, your client, everyone. If you break down the real idea of communication, it's, you're only going to communicate with things and people that you like, that you're comfortable with. And so I think that that's helpful, is because you're acknowledging that leader is doing a good job. Now they're more inclined to tell you what the 3 things are. Now here's the thing though, is that when they respond and tell you those 3 things, those 3 things are going to be more than likely or 2 things are going to be more than likely condensed and summarized. So they're going to be very vague. So let's say if I responded back, I would say, yes, always working. And number 2 is always good attitude. And number 3, never gives up. And so they're resilient. And and sometimes that may not be enough information for you to need. Like, well, fuck, I'm all these 3 things. How come I'm not hitting these numbers? And what you have to do is, from that email, then you have to actually make a kind of like a contact, a point of contact, whether it's by email, whether it's by like an acknowledgement email that you're sending directly to that top producer. So if they get a shout out, and obviously they're always at the top of the list, the next time you get a KPI report from a manager or your VP of sales on the team, of your team or your division, that sends you out that whole list of who's doing it, who's not, who's at the top of the list with the most production, most sales. When you see that list come out, it's a good opportunity to now forward that email directly to the top producer you're trying to network with, and then just give them a congrats. Just say, hey, great job. And that's it. Don't go in for no ask. Don't go in for no, hey, can you show me? Hey, can you mentor me? Hey, can I sit with you for 3 hours, take up your time and ask you 900 questions on how you do it? That might not be an effective way. However, if you forward that email with just a simple acknowledgement saying, hey, great job, really, really inspiring me, thank you for all you do, and that's it, they're naturally going to respond with thanks. And what you've done is you've planted a seed where now they recognize your name, and you are someone who's not asking for anything from them. And you have to keep in mind that a lot of these top producers, it's the same story. They're being asked a ton from not only their team, but their manager, their executives, their spouse, their kids, their family, their life. And then to have someone outside of these factors come in and say, hey, I want something too, you may overload them. And then again, they're answering your request or approaching your request with a different mindset. And so if you acknowledge them first and you say, hey man, great job, real inspiring stuff, I'm working my ass off to get to your level, I'll see you at the top. And that's it. And when you do that, you're putting yourself in a better light. And it's really planting a seed, because what will happen is, in time, whether it's the next day or a couple days or a week later, you'll reply back and they'll remember you in a better light. And this is worth it. The patience is worth it. And if you need to find out things on what to do in the meantime or in the interim, go check out some Sales Remastered videos. I got a bunch of content for you to watch. But why going in about that way is because when you do next engage with them, let's say 3 days or a couple days after, you know, you send them over a message, say, hey, you know what, compliment them again, say, hey, you know what, yesterday I saw you at the top of the list, great job, or you know, whatever applies, and say, you know what, I'm studying the top people on this floor, and I actually went to their manager to see if there's anything that I can take away and learn to see if I can reach the same success you've reached, or something to that effect. And mention and say, hey, you know what, I got their input, but I want to hear from the pioneer themselves, or I want to get your feedback. If there is anything that anyone could have told you within your first month starting this floor, just like I am, what do you think that piece of advice would be? And you just want to open the dialogue with very open-ended question. You want to avoid the yes/no answers. You want to avoid the close-ended questions. You know, you want to be able to manufacture a question that will get them talking. And so the response that you might get from this top producer is saying, yes, don't take it, you know, they might reply back and say, yes, work your face off. And it's going to be very vague, right? Whatever the response is, and say, you know, just reply back and say, great, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And then open up a question where you're having the most challenges and say, you know, for example, great, that's exactly what I'm doing right now, but it feels like I'm just turning my wheels. I'm putting 110% into this job, but I'm not yielding the results. You know, and then hopefully you've identified where your fallout is, whether it's in the beginning of the process, the middle of the process, or towards the end of the process, that you're losing most of your momentum, you're getting deals fall out, or you're having a struggle with, and you just want to bring up one. You don't want to hit them with a bullet point of 9 objectives that you're trying to complete like they're your assistant, because then you're turning the tables and now you're putting, you know, a burden on that person's plate, and that person is busy because of the top producer. So be aware of these surroundings, you know, be aware of that approach. I think you can use that not only with just learning and soaking up the knowledge from the top producers on your floor, but I'm telling you because this is what I've done, and this is what I did, and this is what I do. You know, and I'm seeing it happen over and over. I'm seeing it happen the right way, and I'm seeing it happen the wrong way. And so I hope you're not doing the wrong way. I hope you're finding all the right ways here at Sales Remastered. If you like this information, please watch it over again, comment, like, and subscribe. I appreciate you. I'll see you guys next time.